EE3 effectively, like, I don't want to say confirmed it because EE3 is always people kind of speculating, but they like pretty heavily emphasize that is what is going on. So like cosmic exploration, I think what's going to happen is you're going to go to maybe the stars that were destroyed by Meteon Song of Oblivion, or it could just be stars that weren't dead, but I would definitely expect that kind of thing.
Either we're bringing life back to these, worlds that have been just devastated, or we're finding worlds that actually never were hit by any of the chaos that was going on in the universe. That Ultima Thule kind of really, expanded on some of these stories we always wondered about the dragons, obviously about, I think I'm going to say Ultron, but I can't remember
Omicrons.
The name. Omicrons. I was like, here we go.
Yeah, the Omicrons, the 24, the galleons. Like there are a bunch there, and so there's a lot of really fertile ground to hit on there. The only real extraterrestrial threat that would be interesting for them to deal with in some way at some point is to get a little bit more into Ultima the High Seraph, because they started to get into Heart of Sabik stuff a little bit with the
it's gonna be
Anabasios.
like that sword and WoW. They're
just
never gonna address
a little bit. To be fair,
what heart?
To be fair, they did with Anabasio start down that path and also specifically say, hey, I'm holding on to this heart. We're going to study it. Come back and talk to me, which means that they've not just like kind of done what they did in the past.
When did the sword land in Azeroth?
That would have to be Legion, right? Because isn't that when Sargeras stabbed it in?
Okay, so the sword in Azeroth is younger than the Heart of Sabik reference?
Oh, by a lot. Because the Heart of Sabik's 10 years old. Or 8 years old. Or actually, at this point, about 10 years old.
Legion. Oh yeah, then it was before. Wow.
Yeah.
So if they resolve their sword before we resolve our heart, that's ridiculous.
But what about the memes, Chris? What about the memes?
Has been issued.
But yeah, so the thing is that I don't really want to go out to the Sea of Stars. Like, I don't have a problem with it necessarily. If they have a good story to tell, I kind of just want them to tell a good story. But there's so much terrestrial to do, Marasidia plus all the other stuff, and the reflections. It's like I think that's the vast majority of what they're going to focus on. Probably for the next arc will be that. But yeah, I don't know. Sorry, I've lost the plot. What was the original question?
I don't remember. I'm thinking about that sword.
We're the best, most professional podcast. Like and subscribe, guys. We forget our own question.
I'm so used to just rambling about the lore and just like
cosmic exploration is where we started.
Yeah.
And what do we expect from that? Well, I think it could be something like halfway between Island Sanctuary and a restoration.
Yeah.
Because I don't think they want to build another Ishgard, but I think Island Sanctuary has kind of been something that people have really enjoyed. Because the problem with the restoration was like only one group got to win, right? So, maybe your world is Culinarian. And then once it's done, it's just the feats. And the feats don't really have the same life.
Yeah.
And the Stormblood stuff, when we like rebuilt the little enclave, it never really felt like you got the kind of autonomy to decide how it got built out. You just kind of turn things in and it just kind of automates itself.
Yeah, that was more about the side quest nature of like building. That to me, I guess I was never out on the fantasy to me of the Enclave.
And then the kids are making like finger paintings of me, and then I don't know, maybe I missed.
It was the Hingan tribal quest, is what it was, but you were paying for it instead of like doing a quest.
I was being paid for it.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
That was what was weird about it, is I was being paid. It like my donations were making money. So I don't know, somewhere in between those. And so I would assume cosmic exploration is somewhere in between and is kind of the next iteration of that. Well, and I think Brian may hit it. Like, what if it's a chance to kind of start breathing life back into those dead worlds?
Yeah.
And then you can just kind of pick each one and hopefully have a little bit of.
Well, and what further goes to that is that from the art we see in the description that we had is that it's probably going to be using Loporrit travel technology and a lot of their capabilities they have a lot of their technology is all about trying to seed a new star for life. Like that was what the whole plan was to try and in the Exodus was to try and find a different place for home and then move again if they needed to. And on top of that, they described it as it's not just like, oh, we're going to go to a planet. It's like every patch, there's going to be a different star that we're going to be moving to, which I also think means that it even makes more sense for them to do something like they did with Restoration, which you're right. When I said Restoration, I wasn't even thinking like the firmament aspects in specific. I was just thinking more of like the crafting, the diadem, that like all that side of it. And if they wanted to do leaderboards or things like that, like they did with Restoration, which are not my favorite, but assuming that they do, having a thing where each patch it resets gives everyone like, you'd be like, okay, this is the patch where I'm going to go hard on this, you know?
Now, obviously, the biggest question that we see and what we think the community is wondering as well, is there any evidence that the next instance housing to be located on the moon?
The problem is that the housing district on the moon is where they're keeping the third die slot. So
I'm not kidding. When they started to talk about cosmic exploration for a second, I'm like, are they actually going to do moon housing? I was genuinely, and then there was cosmic exploration. I was like, but that said, with what they've done with the 13th and the first now being like sort of reclaimed, I wouldn't be surprised if we saw Crystarium housing someday. I would not be surprised if we saw extraterrestrial housing in some way. And that, like, if the Loporrit said, "Oh, we were looking for stars where we could seed stuff, and we also found this one. Wouldn't it be great to put like?" So it might not be even moon housing, but it might be like planetary housing of some kind. It could be. Look, they made Smileton, right? They made an entire city inside of the heart of the moon as a dungeon. So it's definitely possible.
Which is now empty. Like,
Yes.
we might as well live there.
It's a little bit MC Escher-esque, so it might be a little hard to like throw all the raves that people
That's how they
want,
justify
but it would be
it
cool.
being instanced for 30 million players. Smileton doesn't have to make sense.
I will say, I will be stunned if there is no Solution 9 housing. Like, just one, from what people want, and two, like, everything about the design is just like apartment complexes all throughout the background. So it's like, yeah.
We got apartments. Come on down. Lots of space. It's a soul apartment, so like you won't be able to see it. But,
that'd be really funny if they only sold apartments. Like, they didn't create like housing districts, but it's just because it's just you have there's unlimited player housing.
Unlimited, and you can have the view outside. Like, we can all get the same view because it's not limited to like a real location.
Yeah.
And let people build on. You know, I want 3 rooms, 4 rooms, 5 rooms. I don't know.
All in my GPU, all inside my literal GPU house.